everybody for joining us today. I have a special guest with us today. This is Linda Gill. She's the original founder of Joy in the Morning and has become a close friend. She is a sister in the Lord, and she has just an amazing story of how God really brought this whole dream to her, and I would love her to tell you about that dream. So Linda, go ahead.
Thank you. It is so good to be with you from the opposite side of the country, because I'm in South Carolina and you're in Arizona. So I think this is just amazing technology. But the dream for Joy in the Morning started back in 1996. I had been working in a local hospital as a clinical nurse specialist, specifically working with families that lost babies or had critically ill babies. And that job evolved into working even in the emergency room, basically with any family that came through the hospital that lost a child for any reason. And before I left that job, I was leading 5 different support groups for parents, for bereaved parents. So it was very powerful. And in 1996, the hospital did away with my job, not because it wasn't important, but because it was not reimbursed by insurance. And so I was like just blown away, really. It was very, very upsetting. And my husband at that time said, I think you need to continue to do what you're doing. We have to figure out a way for you to do that. He had lost his first wife to cancer. And he said, what you do is so important. And he said, I wish I had had somebody like you to work with me and my family when I lost Sandra. And so he was right behind me, and I started praying about it, and our Sunday school class started praying about it. And I actually took a 2-day sabbatical and went out to a retreat center close to where we lived. I took my computer, a notebook, my Bible, some music. And for 2 days, I just prayed and asked God to show me what he wanted me to do. And the dream for Joy in the Morning started. I didn't have the name at that time, but the dream unfolded where I wanted to provide support groups for people, whether it was the loss of a child or really any kind of loss. I wanted to somehow just fill the gap that happens after the loss of somebody that you love, whether it was immediate or whether it was later. And so ultimately, I had an interview and worked with a small business development center that was associated with the University of South Carolina here. And it was amazing. And I remember one day walking in and saying, okay, Lord, what do I call this if I start doing it? And God gave me the psalm that says, weeping endures for the night, but joy comes with the morning. Only in my head, morning was spelled Mourning. And I thought, how beautiful. And I told Jim that what God had given me. And he said, that's it. Because he said, if you do good morning, you come back to your joy. And so that was how it all began. And I worked under a contract with the hospital for a little while after that. And at the end of the year, cleared $300. So that wasn't going to work. And so I ended up going back to school to get a counseling degree. And I also we incorporated the Joy in the Morning Center for Life Losses in 2003. And I was still at that point, seeing patients from the hospital up until that point, even though I was not working as an employee. It was a contract job. And then I was seeing clients all over the place when I was in school getting my counseling degree. So that's how it all came to be. And we ran for 15 years, and it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And at the end, I hated to give up the center, but there was no one really to move into my place to take it. It seems that people really don't like to talk about death and dying very much, and you and I have talked about that.
Yeah.
And so there was no one really to pick it up. And my husband said, you're 67, it's time to retire. and so I retired, and we closed the center. And I remember that was March of 2017. And then somehow in the fall, after that, I got a call, a connection. It seems like it was on Facebook Messenger from a woman named Ashley Hughes, who has recently become my friend. And so I just really would love to. It was last fall, actually, that I heard from you. But in March, I think of that previous year, in 2017, you said that somehow God started giving you the dream. So I'm going to turn this over to you and let you tell people what's happened from this point on.
Yeah, well, I think it's so, like you said, miraculous, and just seeing how our stories have really pieced together. Because
Absolutely.
it was the same month that I actually became unemployed, March of 2017, and I started praying and thinking and actually putting myself in that place of, do I want to find another job? Does God have something for me? And I was reading a book, Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren, and he had talked about that some of your deepest hurts, your deepest pains, that's where comes the greatest ministry. And so when I reflected back on my life and just the tragic things that happened, the deepest pains and hurts, I realized that he had already been preparing me really for a ministry to help those that have lost loved ones. And it starts back with my story about when I was 19 years old. I actually married my high school sweetheart. His name was Eric, and he unfortunately died about 2.5 months later after we had been married. He was on a motorcycle, and the man that killed him was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. And so having to start my young life, I mean, you're young, your whole life is starting really
Mm-hmm.
at that age, but um,
Absolutely.
to be widowed at that age and not only experience widowhood so young, but then to experience family death after family death, a neighbor that passed away that I was in, I basically did hospice for, just cousins. It was just a lot of people in a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed that a lot of people were brought into my life at that time that God wanted me to minister to, even though I was broken myself and I was mourning myself. And the more I helped other people during that time, the more I did find that joy and the more
Mm-hmm.
healing I experienced through Christ. And it was only through him and him working in my life, but I was able to see and recognize really people need other people during those
Mm-hmm.
circumstances, and especially the circumstance of a woman losing her husband, being widowed, and if that is by death or abandonment. Through the last 2.5 years, I've really found that that's where my heart is. The main parts of starting a ministry called Joy in the Morning, and I'll talk about the name a little bit, is because of those hurts I've experienced myself. And
Mm-hmm.
when God gave me the name Joy in the Morning, and I didn't know that there was somebody else that also God had given the name, I just battled with him and I said, God, if you want me to start a ministry, you need to give me a name, because what am I going to call it? To me, there's so many things for somebody that's lost a loved one. There's so many names. You don't want a sad name.
Right. It's like you don't want to say Linda Gill's bereavement services.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, right.
Ashley Hughes funeral planning, like
Yeah.
that just, it didn't work. And so I just prayed about it. And then one day I woke up from a nap and that name was just on the top of my mind, and it the same way spelled out Joy in the Morning. And so I started believing and dreaming, okay, that's the name, but I didn't know anything about trademarks or starting a nonprofit or what all that meant. And so it wasn't until I started researching the name and that I saw that it was trademarked, and through kind of more and more research was able to find you and reach out and just see, because to me, I just believed if God said it to me, then why not? And after a while, it just became more about the friendship with you and just thinking, what if he led me to the name just to meet Linda? And that was enough for me. And so just to see how he's beautifully ordained all of this and how gracious you were to give me the trademark, that was such
I
another
need to,
God
I
moment,
need,
you
I
know?
need to interject here,
Yeah.
because when you first called, it was like, oh my goodness, it was listening almost to a clone of myself, because the dream was so similar to the kinds of things that God had given me.
Mm,
And I remember you were talking about wanting to use the name. And since I didn't have the grief center anymore, it didn't make sense for me to hang on to that name. And I prayed about it and prayed about it. And it was just like God said, I want you to give it to her, because she's going to carry on the work. And I think that what he's done is that he has dovetailed our dreams. And I have just loved every minute of the time that we have spent talking and emailing back and forth and doing all the things. And it's an absolute privilege to give you the name. And I'm just so happy for you that you're doing this.
Thank you so much. I thought the same thing. Even when, so we became, for those people that don't know on Facebook, well, we became Facebook friends right away. And everything Linda would post, I'm like, that's something I would post. And it would be something funny or something about one of our favorite restaurants, or there was so many things. Even today, Linda, you're wearing my favorite color, yellow. So God knows, and I just think it's so special, the heart that you've had for people that have experienced loss all of these years. I mean, that is really, it's rare, and it seems more and more it's needed, but people don't know how to help, or people
That's
don't know
right.
how to be there for someone who's experienced the loss of a loved one. And so really my hopes through Joy in the Morning and getting it started, I'm really, I'm really
Hmm.
trying to, the little train that could, tugging along, but I believe that it just is a part of God's heart and part of carrying this
I
legacy
think so
on,
too.
with
Yeah,
you, is that he cares. He cares for those who are grieving.
he
He cares for
does.
those that are heart lost, lonely.
And
And
the dream didn't get lost, because
yeah.
one of the sadnesses of closing the center, the Joy in the Morning Center, was I thought, okay, is the dream dying too? And
Mm,
God resurrected the dream. I mean, he gave it to you this, at the same time that he was closing it. On this side of the country, he was opening it over there. And
right.
I really am blown out of the water by the way he's done this, and by the way he's put our hearts together. And I'm just very happy and excited for what you're doing and what you're embarking on. And it's not going to be easy, but you're going to be able to do it.
Thank you. Well, I think something that we've talked about a lot, and even, I mean, you've even sent me the Dream Giver Planner book, or the journal,
Hmm.
but something we
Hmm.
talked about is both of us read that book, The Dream Giver,
Hmm.
and how to know that God would play such a role, and both of us being encouraged by that, and that reminder
Hmm.
that He is the Dream Giver. He is the one that we are to be pursuing, but in that, He does have a plan for our lives, and that
It's not
plan,
our dream. It's not
right,
our dream.
not
It's
our
his dream.
dream. Mhm.
It's his plan.
Right.
Yeah,
And how it involves others. You need other people in
absolutely.
your life. And so I'm just grateful, and I'm grateful for technology, that even though
Me too. Me too.
even though we're not close, we could be close like this and share with people on Facebook, and just friends and family, so they can know and they can understand what's happening now, and
Right.
what's going to be happening with Joy in the Morning going
Hmm.
forward.
So how
So
about if you tell them what you're planning to do?
ah, so it is a big dream, and I know that God has steps in it, and I believe that
Hmm.
part of that first step is to care for those who have been widowed. And the reason for that is it's such a big part of my story, and I feel it's just such a need. There's so many
Hmm.
women that experience that great loss, and they don't have anybody there for them,
Hmm.
and um, not to put anybody or anything down, but it is the church's role to care for those that
Absolutely.
have been widowed. And so, but it's like, how, so it's
Hmm.
just answering that question, how do we come alongside, how do we encourage, how do we comfort? And I believe one of your emails you had talked about, it's not like, we need to take the reminder of Job's friends, and
Hmm.
so many times they wanted to give advice, they wanted to say, do this, do that, but really Job just needed that friend that was there. And
Hmm.
so I believe that it will be a ministry of comfort, a ministry of care, and there's going to be more things developing. And I'm just taking those baby steps. I'm taking the next obedient step as things come, and listening
Hmm.
to the wisdom and advice of my mentors, and really just submitting every step to the Lord right now. So
Okay. Well, it's been wonderful meeting with you today.
thank you. You as well. Linda, I love how you pray. Will you pray us out today?
I would love to do that. Thank you.
you.
Father, you are our God and you are the dream giver. And the dreams that you give are bigger than what we can ever accomplish on our own. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have all the skills. And so, Lord, you are so amazing at being able to bring people together who have the different skills, the different gifts, the different things that are needed to flesh out the dreams that you give. And so, Lord, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for Ashley, and I thank you for carrying on the dream that you gave me, giving her it's like passing the torch to somebody that's ready to receive it. And it has been such a blessing. And so, Father, today I just ask you to bless the work that she's doing. And I ask that you would provide for it and show her each step. And as she makes additional videos, that those will be meaningful and be able to help people even online before the ministry is actually fully off the ground. Lord, it would be wonderful for people to be able to watch videos and be able to even have video chats perhaps with people that could be helpful. So we just ask your blessing on it, and I thank you for her heart. And I just thank you for what you've done in my life through all of this and what you're going to do through hers. And we just pray these things in your precious name. Amen.
Thank you so much for being on today, Linda. Thank you for everybody for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more videos. I will be definitely videoing with Linda again shortly. And so we just thank you all for your support. God bless.